My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
A gentleman that knows a thing or two about both music and storytelling is Larry Rutman. Larry is an award-winning podcaster and author whose latest book is Intimate Conversations Face-to-Face with Matchless Musicians. He knows about music, he knows about baseball, he knows about being Jewish, he knows about everything. Larry Rutman, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Frank. How are you on this fine morning?
I'm great. I appreciate you asking. How is your Passover treating you so far?
Well, nice. We had a Passover dinner the other night. We had an Irishman come over, and we had a nice Passover dinner with a roast chicken that my wife made with stuffing, and she's a good cook, so it was really delicious, and we loved it.
What's the highlight of the Passover meal for you, Larry?
Well, I think the highlight of the Passover meal is, the idea of the Jews escaping Egypt with Moses and crossing the Red Sea, and then Moses came down with the Ten Commandments, and he didn't get to Israel, but the people he went with did, and I think it represents the survival of Judaism and the survival of the Jews over the long period of time, a couple of millennia, and it also represents freedom and escape from slavery, and we all, want freedom and want to be able to do what we want to do.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Well stated, and happy Passover indeed. Larry, as I alluded to, you've been an attorney, a writer, a podcaster. You've also been quite an authority when it comes to baseball. What are you making of the baseball season so far?
Well, I'll tell you, the Red Sox started slowly, and then they slaughtered the Cardinals by a combined score. I think it was 44-24. Like an average game was like 11-6, and it looked like they were on their way. They got a lot of new players, and Alex Bregman is doing great, Jewish, by the way, and he's a great kid, and I have a nice relationship with his mother. I've never met Alex, but she sent me some bar mitzvah pictures of Alex when he was 13, and those are going to be in my memoir. And he's an amazing kid. He's really a leader. He's rallying the team. Then they ran into a bad time. Now they've won a couple of games, but nobody in the East, including the Yankees, is doing that well. And my prediction is that the Yankees and Red Sox and a few of the other teams in the East will fight it out all the way this year.
I think that's great. And, as a Met fan, last night's loss notwithstanding, I've seen a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Mets this season. I realize this is probably a question you get every day, and maybe there's no good answer for it, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. You just recently turned 94 years old. You're as sharp as anybody. You sound terrific. You seem as active as anybody. What's the secret to staying as sharp, energetic, and active as you are into your mid-90s? Is it all genes? Is it all a question of staying busy? Are there these superfoods you're eating? Is it exercise? What are you doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, I seem to remember you asked me something like that the last time. But, Frank...
Senior moment, apology.
I think it's all of those things. And I can't really lay my finger on it. I know that when I was about 35 years in practice, I realized that all my compatriots of my own age were aging faster than I was. And even today, you can recognize me if you went to high school with me and never saw me since, because, you know, I don't look a lot different. I mean, older. A lot of people take me in my 70s. I think it's really something that is, keeping busy is important. Genes are important. The feeling that you still have something to contribute is important. But I feel really lucky that I'm able to do this and to be as cognitively efficient as I am, still able to write, which I did today, some work I did on my memoir. And I just really feel that I want to, and I've had some medical problems. Everybody, in their 90s does. And even last year, I had a serious one. Wasn't going to kill me on the spot, but it's something that's going to last the rest of my life. But it doesn't stop me from getting around. I don't walk with a cane. I walk fine, even though my balance is not what it was. But I think that I got a chance to live to 100, and the only way I'm going to live to 100 is to keep busy. My wife's a great person. She does a lot of stuff for me. Personal relationships are so important. I love talking to you, and I believe you could be friendly with somebody you've never seen, like you and I, seem to be copacetic. We just got along very well.
Oh, I completely agree with you, Larry, on all fronts, on the being busy front, on the being friendly with folks you've never seen, and completely agree with everything you said there. And for people that aren't familiar with your career, it's been a remarkable one. And, you emphasize staying busy or keeping busy, and that's certainly something that you've done. You've had a remarkable career as an attorney, a historian, an author. What drives you to keep exploring new subjects and to keep writing at this stage in your life? I'm imagining you don't need the money, and clearly you've paid your dues. You've done so much in so many different areas. Why not just kick back, relax, and, enjoy retirement?
I think I'd go into a major depression if I kicked back and relaxed altogether. I like to combine things every day. And I would say that, like today, I worked all day, and I really accomplished a lot. But by the time at the end of the day came, I was ready to relax. And my wife and I went upstairs. We watched some of the television. Sometimes it's news. Sometimes we watched the Red Sox. They did very well tonight. And Alex Bregman got 5 for 5.
Wow.
The first time in his career that he ever did that, with a couple of home runs and a double to boot. So that was fun, and then we listened to some classical music, and I think some of these female musicians, a couple of violinists, were beautiful women, and they played these beautiful pieces. But as a matter of fact, Bob Dylan, I invoked him. There was a song that he did in 1960 that the name of the song came into my mind. I said, must be a Dylan song. I'm trying to remember what it was. And I looked it up, and he wrote it in 1960, like 60 years ago. And I needed it for a story I was writing.
Wow.
And I thought he had written it, and he did.
You started your writing career, by the way, 31 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. You started your writing career at the age of 67. What was it about that moment in your life that made you say, now's the time to start writing?
Well, that was a little before, it was really a little later than that, maybe 69, something like that, almost 70. And I've been practicing law for 40 years. I liked it, but I've always been inquisitive. The three operative words in my memoir are maturation, inquisitiveness, and the other one is, I'm trying to think of the other one. But I just felt that I've always been inquisitive. I'm always learning every day, looking up stuff on the internet, and as I go along, definitions of words to make sure I'm precise. And I just felt that I wanted to do something else. So I think a lot of people get to that. I still practice law a little for a while, but more and more I moved into writing.
And that's great. And you're obviously a terrific writer. Your latest book, Intimate Conversations, Face to Face with Matchless Musicians. It's what was the most surprising or illuminating moment from your interviews with these terrific musicians?
Well, I approach them, Frank, as people. I don't think they want to be. A lot of them are very famous people. You know that, and if you approach them like they're gods or something like that, you'll get no place. You know that. You're a great interviewer, and when you approach them as regular people, they're much more happy with that. And you talk to them in the natural language, and people keep telling me it's like looking over our shoulders as I write about the people I've talked to, because we talk on many, many subjects. And I think that with that approach, I was able to draw them out, and they tell me a lot of things about their life, and they forget about the fact that it's an interview, or a conversation, as I call it, because it's more than an interview. And that way, I was able to fashion a book that people really like. I guess, I'm not sure whether since the last time I spoke to you, there have been 10 reviews on Amazon. They're all 5-star, 10 consecutive 5-star, and there's been a lot of other things about the book, interviews and reviews. They're all favorable. I haven't heard a bad word about the book. Everybody seems to like it. And I think that, it's not a great seller. A nonfiction book about classical music is not going to make a big headline. But I think it's going very well, and I'm very happy. I just won a prize called the Literary Icon Prize or something like that. And I'm up for another couple of prizes.
Wow.
Those prizes can really help you, and it's a very popular book for a nonfiction book. So I'm lucky so far.
Your book, American Jews and America's Game, explores the intersection of baseball and Jewish identity. You just mentioned the player on the Red Sox that went 5 for 5 yesterday who's Jewish. What do you think it is about baseball that resonates so deeply with the Jewish experience in America, Larry?
Well, I think like all groups, ethnic groups, whether it was the Italians, the Germans, the Jews, or anybody else, I think it's a way into America. And, the parents used to complain about Jewish kids back around the turn of the last century that they wanted to play baseball. Why weren't they studying the Talmud? And this guy who ran the Jewish Forward newspaper, who was a very smart guy, said to the parents, let them play baseball because that's a way into American society. I think as far as the game itself, it is a thinking man's game, so that it does resonate that way with the Jews, because you got to think way ahead. What are you going to do? The real smart managers in baseball, whether it's John McGraw or all the others that have followed, Joe McCarthy, and many of the great managers, they were expert at analyzing the game, thinking ahead. And in the third inning, they were thinking about the seventh inning. So, and I like sports like tennis, golf, baseball, where you can see the people. Football I don't love because, I don't like violence that much. I did follow the Patriots, of course. I know Bob Kraft, and I thought that Tom Brady was an absolutely tremendous player. Mm-hmm. And but, basically, like the golf tournament yesterday. Now, Rory McIlroy, I don't know whether you saw that, but when he won, that meant he was one of the few players to win all four.
Right, the Grand Slam, they call it, right?
The Grand Slam. Now, he fell to his knees. He was literally shaking and crying, and because he had accomplished something that he had wanted all his life. He started playing very young. He's only in his late 30s now, I think. And it was very moving. It really was very moving. And I think that's the kind of thrills you get from sports are unmatched, because it's not exactly life or death, but it makes you, when you see that kind of emotion and that kind of commitment. These guys make millions of dollars, but that's not the point. They're giving their all, and that excites people.
Did you ever, by the way, if people are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Larry Rutman. Did you ever come across stories of Jewish baseball players facing anti-Semitism on or off the field? And how do they handle that?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, back around the turn of the last century when Ty Cobb was playing, some Jewish guys played under their own name. Others took up Irish or Italian names. And I think that later on, even Hank Greenberg in the mid-'30s, playing in Detroit, which was Henry Ford's town, Protocols of Zion and all that stuff, and Father Coughlin, he had fights. He hit 58 home runs one year to challenge Babe Ruth. He was a great, great player. And I think Sandy Koufax, by that time, there was more of an integration of Jewish people into American society. Mm-hmm. You know, when Hank Greenberg was playing, that was the time of Hitler rising in Germany. But Sandy Koufax was a terrific pitcher, of course, and sort of kept to himself. He's still around, just turned, I think, 90, and now maybe it was 89, but 90. And I've spoken to him, and he was in the
For
book.
A guy like you, he's a mere youngster, right?
Well, that book was, you get told, Frank, what your book is about by other people. Like, I wrote it as a baseball book, not with earned run averages and all that stuff, but people. People always people. I always say that at the end of my podcast notes. And I think that what happened is that the book, it was said that the book was not only about baseball, but it was a cultural history of the Jews in America from the time of the Great Depression. And this book, Face to Face with Matchless Musicians, Intimate Conversations Face to Face with Matchless Musicians, I'm told I'm being told by the people who criticize that and I'm not a shrinking violet, and I thought it was a good book, but they're telling me it's a better book than I thought it was, that it's going to become a classic. And I'm really excited about that because, listen, how long can I live, Frank? I mean, I'm 94.
I mean, you're rapidly approaching triple digits, Larry.
I'd love to get there, but, I mean, we know that in the natural course of events, I'm out of here, sometime reasonably soon. And although that guy on Broadway, what was his name? He was producing shows at 109.
Wow.
By the way, Frank, as long as we're talking about that book, can I put in a little, is it okay with you if I put in a little plug about where people can get it?
Absolutely, please.
Well, I have a website, so all you folks listening down there in New York, and by the way, even though I'm from Boston, I love New York. It's a great place. I went to law school. I started out at Columbia Law School, and I finished up here in Boston at Boston College Law School. But, the name of my website, take this down if you would, Larry Rutman, RUTTMAN.com. And if you go to that, you'll find out a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's loaded with information. But under the Buy Books page, just click to the publisher's web page, and it comes up with a lot of information at a stroke. And you can then buy it on one of several platforms, including Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And I wish you would, because, even if you're a classical music lover, you're going to like it. And if you're not a classical music lover and you've always wanted to know more about classical music, this is the book for you, because if you read this book, you'll really want to listen to classical music. I mean, I listen to all music. I'm not a snob or anything. I mean, you just heard me talking about Bob Dylan, and I love Bruce Springsteen. Music is music, and a lot of people are afraid of classical music, like they have to understand something. You don't have to understand anything. Just listen. It's beautiful.
Well, I think that's wonderful. One last question about baseball, just because you've had essentially a ringside seat for a lot of the changes that baseball has made over the years, and baseball's changed significantly. You got pitch clocks, you got analytics, you got rules changes like the designated hitter, the ghost runner. Do you think the game is better or worse today than when you were growing up?
Worse by far.
By far.
I'll tell you what. Well, listen, Frank. I mean, I'm really a 20th century person. who's an interloper in the 21st century. I mean, if I died at 75, I would have been out of here before the 21st century got very far. But I didn't. And I had to learn the internet to some extent to be able to write books and, things like that. But I think we're on our way to bad things in the future because of things like artificial intelligence. There's a lot of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of things going on, global warming and so forth, that threaten our existence. Back in the 20th century, you asked about baseball. It was just so much simpler and nicer and quiet, and not exactly quieter, but it was just easy to take. And I used to go out to Braves Field and Fenway Park. Braves Field, the Braves played there until 1952. So I go back to Ted Williams' time, Bobby Doerr, Don DiMaggio, Johnny Pesky, Joe DiMaggio, so I knew all those guys. I didn't know them personally, although I got to meet Casey Stengel when he was managing the Braves. He was a real character, and he became a great manager. Everybody forgets he was a terrific player. He was the most popular player in the country, not because of his feats on the field, although he was a good player, but almost as popular as Ty Cobb because of his personality. Picking up his hat and birds would fly out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's a real character. And, I got to meet Warren Spahn about 30 years ago, who obviously pitched for the Braves, and then later was a pitching coach for the Mets. And he was quite fond of saying that he had the distinction of working for Casey Stengel before and after he was a genius. Which he always got a kick out of. Hey, obviously, hearing your accent, we can tell how much Massachusetts culture and history is ingrained in you, and you've been deeply involved in Brookline, from politics to historical preservation. What is it about Brookline that makes it so special to you?
Well, Brookline's an interesting place because it's surrounded on three sides by Boston, and on the other side by Newton, Massachusetts. It's very close to Boston. I mean, Braves Field was about a half a mile. Well, it was where I lived then. It was about a 10-minute walk to Braves Field, and Fenway Park was a mile away. So I went to a lot of baseball games when I was a kid. Broke into the press box one time. Did I tell you that? Broke into the press box when I was like 13 years old.
I don't think you did. That's something.
No, I broke into I've always been a little bit of a brash guy. So I walked up the stairs and I walked into the place where all the writers were. And they said, "Who is this kid? Sit down, kid. We'll get him a ham and cheese sandwich." So the Braves were playing the Cardinals. And it was 1943 or 4. I must have been 12, 13, something like that. And I had a ball. I can remember Solly Hemus. He was an infielder for the Cards. He hit a home run down the right field line in that game. Ray Sanders was playing first base, and Braves Field was not terrifically attended because the Braves didn't have great teams, but it was just a lot of fun. And you asked me why I like the 20th century better. I mean, it was more human. I mean, like there was a lady there called Lolly Hopkins. She had a big megaphone, and she would razz the opposing players all during the game, and she could be heard all over the ballpark. And you'd get to meet the players when they walked from the places they were living in Brookline to reach the park. Oh yeah, you asked me why do I think Brookline is special? Well, it's close to Boston. It's very convenient. Easy to get to Boston. The town itself does not have a shopping mall. It is a community that rejected the offer of Boston to become part of Boston, and it's had its own town meeting, representative town meeting for all that time. Still does. I was a member of the town meeting at one time. It's had a lot of famous citizens, 6 or 7 or 8 people who are Nobel Prize winners, but generally it's a heavy Jewish population, but there's plenty of other people living in Brookline, so that it's a pretty diverse community. There's lots of parks. I once counted them, 41 different parks. Just yesterday was a beautiful day. My wife and I went to two of them. One, the reservoir, which is not far from where we are, which is beautiful, and you can walk all the way around it. It's about 4/5 of a mile. And then they built a new park at the converted an old reservoir that hadn't been used for years into a new park, and now everybody goes there with their dogs, and you meet people, you talk to them. It's just it's not quite a country town, but it's about as close as you can get to a bucolic, is that the right word, atmosphere without going way out of the city. I mean, I could be in Symphony Hall. I used to walk to Symphony Hall for a concert. I used to walk to Fenway Park for a game. The first time that Pedro Martinez pitched in Boston, I parked my car about a half mile away because it was so crowded, and the police took it, and
wow,
I had to go to Jamaica Plain to get it.
Oh,
but
boy.
Pedro won that game. What a pitcher he was.
Yeah, please, as a Met fan, I can appreciate that. We're talking with Larry Rutman. If you want to check out Larry's website and some of the books that we're talking about, you can go to LarryRutman.com. That's Rutman with 2 T's. His latest book is Intimate Conversations Face-to-Face with Matchless Musicians. Larry, I'll end with this, and then I hope we could chat again soon. Your books span baseball, music, personal memoir, local history. If someone were to read just one of your books, which one should it be and why?
Well, I think right now I'm so centered on intimate conversations face-to-face with Matchless Musicians because people tell me that it's going to be a classic and it's going to outlive me by many years. I think if that one achieves that status, it's going to, even though American Jews in America's Game won several prizes and was considered the best baseball book of the year by Sports Collectors Digest, I think that if one book like the one on music, becomes a classic, then it's going to help give the others a second life. When on Voices of Brookline, my first book, I met Howard Zinn by chance. He's gone now, but famous guy, and in Wellfleet, where I have a summer home, and he was on the corner, and I was parking the car, and I recognized him, and I got out of the car, and I said, Professor Zinn, I've always admired the historical work you've done and the books you've written, and I just wrote a book. Anyway, he was very interested. He said, send me a copy of the book, so I did, and then he writes that this book is a model of how a oral history of a town ought to be written. Now, that was pretty high praise.
Absolutely.
Professors, yeah. And that was all about Brookline. And he didn't live far away. He was a professor at BU for years. And, things like that are really inspiring and encouraging to any author. So I got off to a good start that way. And I've met so many fascinating people that I just, I can't believe my life took that turn, Frank. I mean, I was an okay lawyer, and I was leading, a fairly straightforward life. And I started to do a television program in Brookline on Access TV, interviewing people of the town, and some famous, a lot of them not. And people said, well, you ought to write it in the newspaper, and I did. And they said, you ought to write a book, and I did. And suddenly, my whole life changed at the age of 70, and I became an author. I mean, I'm incredulous to this day. I'm thanking God every day. I never knew that my life would take such a turn, and it's exciting, sure.
That's certainly for sure. Larry Rutman, always a treat to talk with you. Let's talk again soon.
I hope so, Frank, and thank you so much for inviting me back and then saying what you just said, because I think that I think you're a terrific guy and a terrific interviewer. You're always prepared. You always ask the questions that one would want to have asked. And so any of you, all your fans out there listening know how good you are,
Well.
or they wouldn't be listening. Thank you so much.
Well, unless there's nothing else on, Larry. There's always that. Larry Rutman, thank you very, very much. You could absolutely check out all of Larry's books and a ton of other information at LarryRutman.com. Larry Rutman with 2Ts.com. If you want to comment at any point, you can certainly do so. 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.